Best Travel Article. And our nominees are Senior Hosteling in Ireland by Kay Kennedy, I Rented an Old Man by Lynda Grace Philippsen, Desert Encounter by Ruth Stewart, Best Field Trip Ever by Marion Dodds, Invitation to a Voyage by Tim Brownlow, and The Spirit of Haida Gwaii by Brenda Deneen. I contacted our winner and let them know, and here's that interview right now. Hello, Lynda.
Hi, nice to see you again.
It's great to see you. Wonderful to have you earlier on in our writer's workshop as a special guest, and great to welcome you back now as we talk about this rather dynamic travel article, I Rented an Old Man. Now, I think with a provocative title like that, we have to set the scene a little bit. This is one in a series of articles you've done about your travel to Japan and your encounter with that culture.
Right, yeah. I was studying Ikebana at the Sogetsu School of Ikebana in Tokyo beside the Canadian Embassy, for those of you who know the city. And while I was there, Tokyo is basically your living room. I had a little apartment that is the size of my bedroom back home that included everything, 300 square feet. And so it becomes the place where, you go out. You don't actually live in it the way I live in my living room at home. So this is part of any number of adventures on any given day.
And here we see this imperious hand reaching over to grab this unsuspecting Japanese gentleman who has a price tag on him. And the title is, I Rented an Old Man. What is the purpose of renting an old man?
Well, for me, it was to get me into an atmosphere or into a venue in which I would not be comfortable. I'd had a number of music-related experiences in the city at the time, but I'd never really explored any of the little hole-in-the-wall kind of jazz music kind of opportunities, sometimes a little bar with maybe 20 seats. And because I don't speak Japanese or read Japanese, I'm not too comfortable 10 o'clock at night walking into an atmosphere like that solo. And, not knowing what I'm going to hear. You have to pay some kind of cover charge. You have to have drinks. I didn't really want to waste my time. So Japan has a rental culture. We don't have that here. Any of our rentals are somewhat nefarious. We don't kind of put that in the mainstream in terms of, unless you're hiring a cleaning lady or hiring, window washers. It's that kind of thing. It's not as personal, whereas this is personal. You can actually hire someone to make an apology for you or do some other thing that you don't like. For example, and I mentioned this in the article, if, let's say, your parents are hounding you about not being engaged and getting married, you can rent a fake fiance and, bring him home for a couple of years. And then say, oh, we broke up. I discovered he was cheating, whatever. You make up a story and get your folks off your back. Now, that to us is completely foreign. So anyway,
by the time you're pretending that you've been married, by the time you pretend you've been married for 10 years, that's going to be a fairly expensive proposition, I imagine.
Well, it's only about $15 an hour, so it's not that bad, and you don't have that many holidays to go visit your folks. And, the Japanese people are working all the time. They'll understand, we can't leave the company, So anyway, there is that opportunity.
It's cheaper than a spouse.
Exactly.
One other thing that struck me, Lynda, was that the definition of old man seemed somewhat flexible. It turns out your old man was all of 49 years old.
Right.
And here he is, you're calling him Nagi-san here.
Yeah, that's his
Dagestan
name.
turned out to be something of a kind soul.
Well, he was young and he presented very young. I mean, I don't call people in their 40s old. That's, and I have a beef with ageism anyway. And I mean, I even fall into that in the article and even just some of the language that I use about age and so on. But yeah, he was an unemployed person who had been out of the country for a long time and was reestablishing himself, looking for work, finding it hard. But because he was fluent in Chinese and English and so on, and he had international guide experience, he basically had to pay a fee to join the company. And then they would set him up with clients. So it was, income in addition to other, he was basically working what he could get. He was like a jobbing actor, really. So that was his situation.
One of the things that I love about your articles, Lynda, is the way you layer in image after image to pick a theme and build it up and create some resonances. And one of the things you do here is talking about one of the small restaurants that you visit that's run by some very elderly people. And so on this theme of age and usefulness, you paint in this lovely picture of these folks who were very old. And I think in your article you said multiple times, I felt like I should get up and be helping them because they were that aged.
Yeah, I said that I felt that we should be caring for them. You know how grandkids are. They go over to their grandparents, and I did this myself. I was, I guess, in my 30s, and I'd go to my grandparents who were in their 80s, and they would cook for me, and they would, welcome me, because that's what you do with your grandchildren. You fuss over them. But in this situation, I mean, it's hard to judge people's age, but I would have put them in their late 70s, early 80s. This couple, the man was cooking and the wife was serving. And I just felt like I should be getting up and saying, no, you sit down and let us bring you the food, and say, and there we are. I mean, they were very spry and so forth. But again, here we are looking at these ageist tropes and thinking someone is, more infirm than they are because of the way we present and the way we have been taught to view age.
It's one of the beautiful things about your writing in general, and particularly in this article, is that you have a kind of playfulness and irreverence with certain things where you transgress certain boundaries very consciously, but then also take some accountability for that and reflect on it. So you play with that in the I Rented an Old Man. It's kind of comical, but you at the same time hold yourself to think about what it is to deal with people in a sense of utility and just using them. And that sensitivity, I think, is something that makes this article very special.
Yes, and I think because I'm a white woman, I have a certain level of privilege, and I'm kind of aware of that. I don't want to transgress in that way. For example, I will not ride in a rickshaw, even though it's part of the tourism in Japan. I just can't. It just feels wrong to me. So I always try to be very sensitive to the fact that other cultures are different. Perceptions of me in that culture are different. I represent Canada when I am traveling somewhere. I'm not just myself. And I do have, concerns about those kinds of things. And still, you could also rent a girlfriend in Japan, and that could be a young person to, act as your sister or, do some other role outside of our own culture. It doesn't have the same connotation as it would here. So again, it's coming up against those differences and then dealing with them and trying to feel comfortable, trying to be part of the culture, trying to enjoy the experience, but also being sensitive to how wrong that can be. You know, it's a fine line. It's a fine dance. On my way back to my apartment, passing my quiet neighbors in Aoyama Cemetery and gazing across the towers of Roppongi, I'm reminded of the numerous other Ichigo Ichie, or once-in-a-lifetime encounters with individuals like Nagi-san during my months in Tokyo. Repeatedly, in serendipitous ways, paths intersect and moments we share often surprise with genuine and even profound connection. That, despite a careless thought at the outset that it might prove a lark to rent an old man.
But you did make some connections you did make some powerful connections with people over there that mean a lot to you.
And it's surprising how often that happens so randomly and in different ways. Well, I spent a lot of years, writing a blog about some of these things, and that stuff's still there if anybody wants to go and read it. But yeah, it was a very, very interesting journey for sure.
Well, before I let you go, we should mention your blog. It's thewayofwords.com. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thewayofwords.com. And then I also post to Instagram at Lynda Wow, WOW for Way of Words, not World of Warcraft or any other wow.
Well, we'll share those links with people.
Sure. Okay, that's great.
Well, I should also tell you before we sign off here that our committee, the communications committee that does the voting for these awards, has actually entered their verdict. And I'm very happy to tell you that, in fact, Lynda, you are the winner of the PostScript Excellence Award for Best Travel Article. So congratulations.
Oh, thanks so much. I'm really sorry we can't do this in person and eat rubber chicken. Yeah. I haven't been off the island since 2020, so I was really looking forward to being in a large group and that. So applause would have been nice.
Well, there it is. The communications committee did vote you off the island, so to speak. It's too bad that you weren't able to be there in person, but we'll rectify that, I hope, in the future.
Oh, that's really lovely. You've made my day. No, thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Lynda.